Margaret Miller was in charge of preparing the report on Monsanto's genetically modified bovine growth hormone following its approval at Monsanto. And she was later the official in charge of reviewing her own report as the Deputy Director of the Human Safety and Consultative Services. So she wrote a report and then conveniently got elected to the exact position in government in which she would review that report not too long afterwards. Then we have Michael Taylor, who was a partner at the law firm that represented Monsanto, and then he became the FDA's Deputy Chief Commissioner for Policy, where he wrote that FDA's Monsanto's genetically modified growth hormone labeling guidelines. He claimed there was no difference between their synthetic cloning modified hormones and regular milk. The stance is part of the reason why the hormone itself is legal in the United States. He then spent a few years working directly for Monsanto and has been brought back by Barack Obama as the food safety czar. So this is a guy that worked for Monsanto, went ahead and approved everything that was extremely dangerous to health. I'm going to get into what exactly RBGH is in a second, but he went ahead and approved it right away. And then subsequently, he just got a really awesome, easy job at Monsanto right after doing that. If that's not obvious, then I don't know what is, and there's about 50 other examples too.
Wow.
It's complete corruption.
Absolute. Let's take a couple of phone calls here at 855-99-JOYCE, 855-99-JOYCE, or 855-995-6923, 855-995-6923. If you have a question or comment of our guest today, Anthony Gucciardi, and, of course, the website, which is naturalsociety.com. Talk to us about your website. What can people find there? Why should they go there?
Sure. Well, one thing I'm really proud of with my website is not only have we been kind of leading the charge against Monsanto as well, grassroots, by the way. I released an article, it was, I believe, back in...
What? Okay. We're trying to get him back. He dropped off the line, unfortunately. We're going to find out what you can do as a grassroots person, because this is something that we all have a vested interest in. If anybody thinks that their food doesn't count or their food isn't important or not going to be the direction of the way their health is going to go, think again. I mean, I was at the grocery store, and I look at the people that are traveling on those carts, those motorized carts. I mean, it seems like we're getting more handicapped slots, more motorized carts than ever before. Maybe I'm just imagining that. But it really does seem to we seem to have created more illness, more disease. We're not eating the herbs and the spices that keep us from getting those diseases, and we're putting the things in that are the damaging items. And I don't know how to get them out of the system either. I don't know if Anthony knows that question. But, Anthony, back to what we can do at your website or what grassroots can do.
Yeah, sorry there. I got dropped.
You can't imagine.
I was talking about how my website got hacked once we put up the story about GMO cornfields being destroyed by someone based out of Russia. Anyway, they hacked my website, which is extremely secure. They've spent about 12 hours getting into the system. And the only thing they did, when they had full access to my website, they deleted Hungry Destroys All Monsanto GMO Cornfields because it was getting 20,000 shares a day.
Really?
Yep.
So out of all the things that happened to your website, they dumped that story.
The one article and then logged out.
Wow. They dumped that article, then logged out. 54 minutes after the hour. Thank you for joining us at the Power Hour today. Anthony Gucciardi is our guest, naturalsociety.com. We're talking about what you can do, and we're also going to take your calls to find out what you're thinking about the Monsanto problem, what you're doing to fight Monsanto, because we're all going to have to. My gosh, if you think about all the things we have to, quote-unquote, fight all the time or stand up against, I don't think fight's the right word, but stand against. Thank goodness we've got people like Anthony Gucciardi putting this information together for us. And so let's support the people that are doing the next right and honorable thing. Let's go to John in Michigan. John, you're on the air. Go ahead, please, with Anthony Gucciardi.
Well, thank you, Joyce, for this great program. And I just would like to find out if the gentleman realizes that Monsanto is one of the biggest financiers of the chemtrail program or the geoengineering. And
how do we know that? How do we know that?
That was, I think, Scott Stevens was one, and that let that information out years ago. But also Kaiser Aluminum. That's one factor in their development of their seeds that will be tolerant to the aluminum soil. And also, is there a bacteria? I also heard that, I don't know if this was you talking about before in another program, about a bacteria that develops in the gut, that is foreign bacteria to the body, and that children with autism and learning disabilities are just extremely affected by this bacteria, and also the animals too that eat the GMO food. Are you familiar with that information?
Yes, I am, and I want to mention that. I'm so glad you brought that up. Kansas City, at the medical school there, is now going to start an abdominal intestinal transplant. Let me say this again. An intestinal transplant program, bowel transplant program for children, because there's this huge new influx of children with bowel diseases. Now, this blows my mind, since we never saw this ever before. Even bowel transplant, when I was involved in transplant, was not a thing that was known. But this is huge. Bowel transplant, an entire program at a medical center for that? Let me ask Anthony if he's aware of that.
Yes. Well, first of all, yes, they are making aluminum-resistant crops. And I think that's pretty
They're making what? I'm sorry? They're making what?
Their new strains of GMO crops are aluminum-resistant, to address the first.
Okay, what does aluminum-resistant mean?
Well, the chemtrails contain a number of different aluminum compounds, so it damages the crops, and they're making provisions for that because they're obviously in the know on that. But in terms of bacteria, the phrase "you are what you eat" comes true here. When you eat genetically modified organisms that have been altered in numerous different ways, you're essentially taking that and consuming it, and that's what your body is running off of, and that's what your bacteria are in turn consisting of as well, because health starts in the gut. When you don't have enough good bacteria, you are prone to disease from genetically modified organisms or just about anything, just any bad bacteria containing substances. And when you eat genetically modified foods, it's been shown now that it's completely destroying your beneficial gut flora and assaulting it with bad bacteria and a number of other issues as well. So,
all right, John, very good point. I'm glad you brought that up. And I mean, the thing that I'm concerned about is these bowel diseases. They say they can't find any cause to it. Yeah, you bet. Another one of those mystery illnesses and diseases. But I think a lot of children are having bowel problems now as a result of genetically modified food. That's my own opinion. What else did you want to say, John?
As far as the aluminum goes, it changes the alkaline and acidity of the earth that turns it more towards neutral. And so these plants will grow in a neutral soil where other the heirloom seeds will not. And this is where they get control over the food. And also, when we went into Iraq, the first thing we did was take away their heirloom seeds and gave them a Monsanto seed. So,
that's right. That is absolutely right. Thank you very much for that information, John. We'll be back with Anita in South Dakota after this break and with Anthony Gucciardi. Stay tuned.